What up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. Ruben, bro, how you doing?
I'm all right, man. What did we say a couple days ago?
Hey, man, I thought it'd be closer, but I think I said like 110, 109 or something like that. Jimmy to win.
Yeah, I
But
said like 99, 97. So I don't know,
yeah,
man. We're on the same boat, but
hey,
it's a it was a good Monday for us.
oh yeah. Christian's not here because he's recovering. No, I think he had work today, so we're two manning it today. But all right, this is episode 44. Ruben, brother, who is your favorite player to wear number 44?
44. Who's worn 44? I don't even know.
Give you a hint. The logo.
Oh, Jerry West wore
Yeah,
44.
Jerry
Did
West
he?
wore 44.
With who though?
I think he played the Lakers his whole career, no?
Did he?
Pretty sure.
Wow. I'm not a historian, y'all.
That's not me neither really. I just Googled it before, Googled it before, but we got a couple things to get into. Obviously, the finals is a big thing happening in the next couple of days. But before that, let's start off with this. Big news. Nick Nurse is confirmed the coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. Ruben, first of all, I think you already gave your flowers to Nick Nurse, got y'all a chip and all that, but how you feeling about this hire? I'll let you take over for you.
Yeah, I mean, I said this the other day too. I literally said I think the best hire for them would be Nick Nurse if there was a choice. And I mean, I guess it was a Embiid hire. I think there was some reports saying that Joel was he vouched for the hire, and reason being like Nick Nurse is a championship level coach, right? Like he's proven the ability to get the most out of his players, like maximize like a talent pool.
No doubt.
He did that in 2019. He did that in 2020 when you have a championship caliber roster. And although this year didn't go the way they wanted it to, the last 2 years, I think he was able to pull as much as he could with like for the lack of a better term, good roster construction, right? So he's only really had one losing season since he's been here. And every other year, this team has been in the playoffs or won a championship, right? So um, he's not the nicest guy in the world, but he's definitely as good as it gets in the X's and O's. And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of he was probably the best coaching. He was probably the most highly touted coach on the market. And so I think the Sixers, based on their situation, like with Joel under contract and Nick Nurse coming in there, I think it's kind of like a win-win situation for both parties.
100%.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think like if I'm Joel, I'm really excited about this because I think there's a lot of hand holding over the last few years with Joel's minutes. And I think, we were talking about this with Milwaukee. If Nick Nurse, got hired by Milwaukee, like Giannis would be able to play more than 35 minutes.
100%. I think only thing I'm like concerned about is that I don't think that Giannis's minutes were limited because of his health, but I think that's a big thing with
Agreed.
Joel. So, we'll see how they manage it. I expect Joel to probably sit a few more games next year, but with the whole 65 to get all NBA, it's going to be, I think next year is going to be a lot of,
It's gonna be interesting next year.
yeah, it's going to be interesting, a lot of tweaking and all that, but yeah, I like this hire
I
as
think they're
well.
gonna time the sits. Like they're gonna time. Sorry,
Yeah,
just to
go
drop
ahead.
that. I think they're gonna time like the the what do you call it again? Load management thing, or so to speak. I think they're gonna time that really well because if you're really looking at the last 17 games, maybe that's like every 7 or 8 games like a player sits. I mean, it still works.
Yeah, and my big thing, this isn't necessarily about Embiid, but just the overall 65 games thing. What's to stop a player from? I remember the year Milwaukee was the year Milwaukee won the chip in our last game. Drew
Yeah,
came in for a minute, not even fouled, so he could get a little bonus. So curious what it's going to be like with that. But no, again, I think a person I'm really excited to see how Nick Nurse affects them is Tyrese Maxey, because I feel like he's the kind of guy that's really gonna, one, obviously see the uptick in minutes, but two, I think in doing that, it's gonna really unlock like Maxey's game, which we've seen. He has the ability, I think, to be a lead guard, and I think from a scoring standpoint, that's something that you definitely want. and with the looming future of James Harden, it's that's the really the only thing you're banking on is Maxi's development, and this is a good start.
Yeah, I agree with the Maxi thing. The only thing is, like, if you really look back at Nurse's tenure, he hasn't had a really good, solid development project, and in fact, it's kind of been negative otherwise. But I think with Nurse typically runs an open offense, right? There isn't a whole lot of schematic, like there's not a whole lot of system stuff going on, which could be a good or bad thing. But with Maxi, I think there's an opportunity there for him to develop, right? Because it's not so much about his offense over the last few years hasn't been so much about like here's the pegs and here are your guys, other than when they had Kawhi, but it was often feed the hot hand, and a guy like Maxi I think is going to be able to benefit from that really well. And we'll see. I think this is really interesting. We're talking though as if James Harden is going to stay, and so I think that's the biggest question mark with this bringing Nick Nurse in, and if James Harden isn't there, it will look like a significantly different roster than what we initially thought.
No doubt. But I mean, I agree though. This is probably the best hire. This is going to be the best hire I think of the entire season, barring maybe like I don't know. There's talks of Phoenix trying to lure away Tyronn Lue. I think those
So
two I put in the same kind of tier. But I mean, whew,
agreed.
Philadelphia I think's really. I think they're going to make a real good push to kind of bring back the pieces of last year, and maybe if anything try to like maybe because I think they're obviously in the situation where there's not too much draft flexibility, but then as everyone's already kind of seen, this draft's like very very deep, and I think there's gonna be a lot of guys that slip through the cracks. Guy I look to, I'm a big UCLA guy. I really like Jaime Jaquez. That's just some biased stuff, but he's a guy I think could really fit on that team. 3-and-D to an extent, does some decent playmaking. And I think that we're going to see a lot. I mean, you've already seen in like the past, like with, who are some guys who have been like second round picks that have really started to benefit. I mean, and even when you look at like late rounds overall, there's a whole bunch of guys. Because I mean, you got what? Herb Jones is probably the biggest.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of these guys that are, late round picks. And just because they don't have that sexy, smaller number than 30th overall or whatever it may be, I think, if you're the Sixers, you really got to do your due diligence and start to build this roster out with at least some like kind of young talent. But yeah, I'm excited. Nick Nurse. Well, I also feel like to your point of not necessarily having a lot of young guys, when you look at like his Raptors tenure, his like, I think Fred's kind of an outlier because he was a 4-year college guy, right?
Yeah, he was a 4 year. Yeah, he played 4 years.
Yeah,
and,
so that he has like, who's like the youngest player you can remember from those Raptors rosters outside of like a Scotty?
outside of Scotty,
Because I don't think they ever got any
I think
one and done guys, right?
the one guy. Well, I mean, this guy also didn't play just 1 year, but I mean, the one guy that we were really looking to over the last few years that I think kind of failed is Malachi Flynn, right? Like that.
Yeah, he was
Right?
in the doghouse.
He was in the doghouse, and there was a lot of opportunity there. And Masai even talked about the fact that there was a little bit of disappointment in the fact that these guys couldn't get major burn over the past couple of years. There's a lack of trust. So, I mean, I can see it. Like, clearly, the team that Philly has right now is built for Nick Nurse because he can trust that there's a lot of proven guys on the roster, as opposed to obviously a team full of younger guys, which they had. And so, great hire. I think this is a really good start for Philly's offseason. If they bring in the same guys, I think. I mean, if you look at the past few years with Doc Rivers and the Sixers and just any team he's coached, like the biggest issue had always been lack of adjustments. And Nick Nurse is the kind of guy that is
He's all
able to
about
do
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's all about that. I think there's a lot of discourse about Nick Nurse and his ability to make adjustments this year. I also, I again, I'm gonna say, putting the Raptors' perspective in, there's a there's a lack of roster construction for there to be like a good, competent team out there on the floor, especially in today's NBA. So whatever negativity there is about Nick Nurse, some of it is warranted, but a lot of it also has to do with the bigger picture. So I'll just have to say that. So great hire. I think it's good that he landed on his 2 feet. And I think Nick Nurse was probably going to be able to choose whatever choice he wanted. But there, I will say, the PR move for his team to come out and say that he didn't choose, that he chose to walk away from the Milwaukee job, that was interesting. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't know that. Like, well, I heard he was obviously a finalist, but yeah, that's interesting actually.
So Shams reported literally, it goes, uh, Nick Nurse pulls away from the Bucks job. 2 minutes later, he tweets out saying the Milwaukee Bucks have hired Adrian Griffin. So it's either Nick Nurse goes, "Hey, Adrian, take the job," or Milwaukee was never going to choose him anyways. And for me, I personally thought the Milwaukee job was the best job open in the market,
Mm.
right? And I thought that Nick Nurse was the best coach. But if you sit there and say, "Oh well, Nick Nurse lost the job to his assistant," that's not necessarily a great look. So, anyways, I thought that whole thing was interesting. I saw a lot of back and forth from Raptors Twitter about it, so it was really interesting.
I think if anything, maybe Giannis had the final say on that. But real
Absolutely.
quick, just to cap this off, if you had to give a quick little record prediction, the Sixers under Nick Nurse, what would you say?
Uh, I'll give them 56 wins this year.
Oh, dang.
56 wins.
Okay,
Yeah.
respect. I think I'm
Yeah.
about. See, I think if everything's like working well, especially if they bring James back, I don't think it's crazy to say they could like even push to 60. I think 56, 57 is a good number. I'll say 52. But yeah, this is gonna be definitely one of the big storylines heading into next season. Moving on, happened today. It's the end of an era.
Yeah.
Bob Myers is stepping down as the Golden State Warriors. Is he the full president or is he just the GM? I always get
He's a president and GM. He's a president and GM.
running it
Yeah.
both. Okay. And in my opinion, I think this is a sign that either Draymond or Poole is not going to be a Warrior next year. And I think the main reason was I feel like because there's been a lot of reports that the Lacob family, the owners, want to get below that new tax bill, whatever the
Yeah.
number is, and with that,
The new CBA.
yeah, and I think a big reason, and I say Draymond or Jordan Poole to say that I think Bob Myers stepped down because it was probably Draymond's got to go to the owners. That's my guess. Not to be
Yeah.
like super duper like whatever the word is when you don't have all the facts, but I think that's a big reason. I saw that a lot, and I think you sent that tweet to me, right?
Yeah.
It was something
yeah,
like he doesn't want to be the
that's what
one
we're
to
talking
like
about.
put that final nail in. Yeah.
Exactly. I think that the core is done after this year, and Bob Myers stepping down is probably a huge indication that there's something changing. Whether it's the coaching staff, which would be a grave mistake, and or the players, which I also think would be a grave mistake. And between the new CBA, which will make it really hard for teams to retain their players,
Yep.
which is unfortunate. The players that they've drafted and they've homegrown and they've developed and created a culture with, they've made it difficult for them to stay together simply because, you know, that they're penalizing the owners that want and are willing to pay for their teams to stay together. Now, granted, this year was a bit of an outlier too, because the Warriors, for much of the year, was a 500 team and they were awful on the road.
Mm.
Like there was a good stretch where they didn't win a game for like 3 months, right?
I
On the
think
road,
they
or
were
something like
at
that.
par or like maybe just a couple games over the Rockets in terms of like road
It was pretty bad.
record. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously Golden State's a really good home team, so they make up for it in that department. But I mean, the team was not good until other teams started to drop out of the race because of injury problems, like Markkanen and obviously New Orleans was the number one seed at one point during the season until Zion and the rest of their players started to struggle with injury. So, I mean, all of that's to say that I think there's significant change, and Bob Myers itself is like the nail in the coffin for this core
I can
because
see
he's
that.
not the guy that could. He's not the guy who's gonna vouch for the core that he created that managed to win 4 championships. So him gone. I would even go as far as to say Steve Kerr is potentially on the hot seat because whoever comes in, again,
Okay.
whoever comes in at the front office, they're gonna want to hire their own guy. And if they feel like this team is not capable of winning a championship any further, right? You cut the ties to Draymond, you cut the ties to such and such. You can't sit in here and say, oh, well, this core as is going to be able to play the same level of basketball because you don't have that certain aspect, that element to what Draymond is as a playmaker for Clay and stuff that we've seen for so many years. So you cut that, Nail. You cut out the other piece, which is Draymond. So what do you have left? You have two guys in a system that no longer works because there's a huge element and a piece of that's just missing. So what are you going to do? So you're going to end up saying, well, we need a new coach. So I know there's a lot of moving parts, and I even saw like a tweet. They were saying that Steve Kerr could potentially take over Greg Popovich over the next few years, and I was like, damn, that's interesting. But yeah, the Bob Myers thing definitely hit me in the heart a little because I think neither of us here can say we're big Warriors fans, but that core was a joy to watch.
I can, by association, my mom's a big Clay fan.
Oh yeah, your mom, yeah, that's right.
Did you see the post that they had for him where like showcased all the big moves he made?
Bob Myers?
Yeah, on like the Warriors
I did
Instagram.
see that.
That was man.
Special executive.
Yeah, man, that was just pure masterclass every step of the way. And man, and when we're gonna look at this, when you look at it from a revisionist standpoint, we're gonna look back to that. What was it, 2019? That draft, man.
Yeah.
If you get a LaMelo, you get a Tyrese, whatever it may be, you could be looking at something different.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's the one blemish on his resume, which is unfortunate. And he turned James Wiseman into Gary Payton II. So,
hey,
tough.
It is what it is. But when we're talking about Bob Myers, where should he go to next, and why is it the Detroit Pistons?
The Detroit Pistons are a perfect landing spot for him,
mm-hmm.
right? I mean, like, it's an open canvas. Like, it's a blank canvas. That's that's perfect. It's a great place for him to hang low. And he's a smart guy, and that's a great young roster to work with. So, I mean, it's almost like it's a no-brainer.
100%. I mean, we've already been talking about this. I think if they're able to get one of the big wings coming in this draft with that, I believe they're picking what, 7th? Yeah, 7th? Man, they're looking nice. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's such a nice foundation. You have two guys who had the ability to be your lead guards. Then you got Jalen Duren. I'm a big Jalen Duren fan. And then, the James Wiseman reunion. I mean, James Wiseman played his first good game of basketball with the Pistons this year. So who's to say?
Shit
can't go nice. Yeah.
So, yeah, interesting. It'd be cool to see Bob Myers in Detroit. And maybe he wants to see his proclamation project of James Wiseman through. So,
hey, you heard it here first, y'all. Cade Cunningham, cool. Jaden Ivey, cool. Jalen Duren, cool. James Wiseman, ooh, baby, damn.
That's the money team.
100%. All right, let's move on to Monday night, man. I was cooling. My parents watched the game. My dad never really watches sports all that often. And even he was saying like, yeah, it's hard to come back from 3-0. But then all the signs, everybody was saying, I want to see history. And history was gone within a minute. Yeah, I mean, to just flat out, like chips on the table and all that. Celtics lost all of the momentum within that first minute. And the fact that 3 wasn't falling, which has been a big factor throughout the entire series. I think it's literally been whichever team makes the most threes always wins the game, man. You hate to see it, but first of all, shout out to Jason Tatum for playing 40+ minutes on a bum ankle.
Yeah.
And then you also hear Rob Williams, who had like a stomach virus. And I mean, he was a guy that when they were way down, he was always there to kind of at least insert some kind of spark. I remember when they were down maybe 16, 17, definitely like the hole was starting to grow. And then all of a sudden, boom, just a Robert Williams lob. That's some special stuff, man. And then, the big elephant in the room, when the Celtics needed Jaylen Brown most, Ruben, what did he do?
He's shot on the bed. Dude, he was awful. Goodness.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I just feel like they treated Game 6 like Game 7. I mean, you saw they were out there hugging his shit, like, oh, thank you, Derek. Derek, you saved us. Derek, I love you, man. And they just ran out of
Yeah,
steam.
they ran out of steam. Yeah, yeah, you said it best, man. They ran out of steam. And like, yeah, you said also, the momentum was like taken out of the air when Jason Tatum like, twisted his ankle.
Oh, yeah. You
And it's
can't pin
unfortunate
that
that
one.
that's going to be that. Yeah, it's unfortunate that that's going to be one of the main storylines from that series. That it's like, oh, what if Tatum didn't twist his ankle? Well, you know what? The whole team didn't play great the entire game,
Oh, yeah.
and your second guy, Jalen Brown, regardless, played awful. Um, and their offense was just straight putrid, bro. Like it. And I saw there's a tweet from the OG J. Rich Goodman. I love seeing his tweets, and it's exactly what I would use to describe how the series went. Is the Celtics played off of the dribble, and the Heat played off of the pass. And it's just a simple breakdown to
I like
say the
that.
Heat played beautiful team basketball. Everything that they did came off of the extra pass. Um, and while the Celtics looked to attack everything in isolation, everything off dribble, which doesn't have a lot of player movement because oftentimes you're watching the ball. And when the Heat put on the elementary school zone and they were trying to break a zone by dribbling through it half the time, and they struggled to get it into the middle, and they struggled to get player movement. It's a part of me is it's like this. It's an IQ thing about the players you have on the floor, and or an ego thing because guys just tend to want to shoot threes in the zone because there's a lot of open looks, but it's one of the worst things you can do against a zone until you're hitting it. It's literally what they're trying to caress you into.
Hmm.
The other part of it is Joe Mazzulla. You have to see that adjustment. Like you have to understand that when they're playing in the zone, like your team should be able to flip that switch pretty quickly. And the Miami Heat have found so much success all year long with that zone. Um, with that being said, you know, it's so hard for me to sit here and be like, wow, man, like the Celtics got upset. But it's like, I just don't think they were ever really that good this year. I don't like,
Yeah.
they might have been like the second best team in the East. But like, could you sit here like, I didn't like, I remember us sitting here at the beginning of the season, and neither you and I were very high in the Celtics this year.
As
At least not that I
I think
remember.
as the year went on and you looked at like what they were doing and how they went about it, I just think they're kind of they're a step below the Grizzlies in the sense that I think they walk around with their chest up and acting like they've already won it and all that, which to the point of to always bring it back to the Bucks, I think that's what really led to the Bucks' downfall. And one of the big things that was said in one of the pressers was, we were playing to win a championship. Miami was playing to win the game.
Yeah.
And I think you really saw that in like game 6 first of all, and especially in this game 7 like implosion.
Yeah. And the thing about the Celtics is it's so weird because they're obviously the much more talented team.
Oh
But
yeah, no doubt.
I think the difference, you know, look in hindsight, Joe Mazzulla got outcoached by Spo, right? And you're looking at the Miami Heat where they're the way that they play allows other guys to just like have freedom, right? Like, and because there's this culture of ball movement, of involving others. Like, there's a reason why Caleb Martin literally, lost the MVP on one vote.
It made it really hard to
It,
deny him.
it made it hard to deny him, and he went off in Game 7. And there's a reason why that happens is because like the system, like their system, isn't necessarily like here's our system. This is our motion offense. No, it's a system of playing off a pass, like sharing the ball with one another, making sure you get the best look available. And when needed, that's when you go down to the stretch and you give it to a guy like Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo to take you home. And that's always been like the best teams. Is like, what did the Milwaukee Bucks do so well? Is attacking the paint and creating open looks from the three. Swing, swing, swing. You play that level of basketball. You put the defense on their heels and they're constantly rotating. And then when needed be, you gave the ball to Giannis at the top of the key to attack the frame of your defense. And so that's the same thing you could say about all the different teams that have won the championships over the past few years. Is there's a level of ball movement, and while guys like you have your superstars to take you home, right? Like the other guys are so important to what you do, and it's almost like they're the primary option before you get to your stars. And I think um, today I don't think that the double wing player, the wing duo, can be successful in this league anymore.
Ooh. Even if
I
like
don't think it can be.
let's put it like this. I think when it comes to the Jays, I think they play too similar. I think you could have two
Exactly.
wings, but I think you need either one to be a supreme level off ball player or just both have the ability to like be off ball, and neither of them really like I think Jalen Brown
Well,
probably hurts them the most in that sense.
exactly. But if I counter you with this, DJ, tell me right now one of the top 10 wings that's an elite off ball player. There's only one guy that
Oh,
I can think of right now, but there's a reason why they haven't worked.
see, whenever I think of off ball and like an elite level wing, I think it always just goes back to Clay, but he's obviously not in that top 10 level conversation at this point.
He's not there anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but if I had to pick, dang.
There's one guy, so for
Who-
me, it's Paul George,
Yeah, I'd say,
but I would have almost said Kevin Durant, but it's hard for me to call him the elite premier off ball player when he played with Steph, Clay, and Draymond when we last saw him in that kind of role.
yeah.
Other times he was a dominant player with the ball in his hands. The other guy is PG just because like he's a guy that can spot up and shoot like
Man,
and he spent a lot of time in corners.
PG has gotten so disrespected. I remember the whole
Yeah,
discourse this year was saying that, man, Jalen Brown is the best Robin in the league, which is crazy.
no, crazy. He's not even close to PG stratosphere.
Man, oh, I think you put PG's What If right up there with a Derrick Rose, my
Yeah,
opinion.
absolutely. And that's why that goes back to my point is Devin Booker and Kevin Durant haven't worked for a similar reason is because both guys, while they're great shooters, a lot of their action tends to be off the ball, right? It's just naturally like these guys are dominant with the ball. Kawhi and PG, that hasn't worked because neither of them have been able to stay significantly healthy. Now we have Jalen and Jason Tatum. I mean, you can go as far back as to like I remember like the DeMar DeRozan and the Rudy Gay. I mean, DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine itself, man. Like that's not
Mhm.
a duo that currently works, right? So we're looking at these wing duos, and it's like there's a level of repetition where unless like one guy likes the left side of the floor and one guy likes the right side of the floor, like that doesn't happen. Like these guys are so repetitive, and it's so easy to game plan for it because like their style of play is so similar. Um, I mean, the last duo that I can think of off the top of my head is literally Scotty and Mike. But Scotty was a premier off-ball player, and he did a lot of his damage defensively off the cut. And they played a style of basketball in the triangle system, which is much different than any of these wing players are playing right now.
100%. I mean, I think this is a
So
perfect segue. Off season, real quick, Jalen Brown extension. I'm gonna say it right here. I need that sign and trade. I need that Dame trade, man. Here's the thing.
ooh,
I love Damian Lillard, but it's so fucking obvious that he's requesting a trade to an extent.
yeah,
It's I'm down to stay, but I'm not gonna be part of a rebuild.
that means like okay, so if you rebuild, they're trading you. Like you don't want to be around the rebuild.
Exactly. Like
It's
this,
so
like
obvious.
I think as valuable as the third pick is, I don't like. Here, I'm not gonna lie. My Western Conference team, I fuck with Portland. If I had to have a Western Conference team, actually I do. It's Portland.
Yeah,
I love Dame. Dame is literally Dame could retire today, and I don't think there's anybody in the stratosphere of his greatness in terms of being a Portland like trailblazer. Clyde's probably obviously up there, but you know, he cheated the grind.
Yeah, Dame's longevity, man. Dame's longevity will always will take
100%.
it
Well,
over.
him and B Roy. B Roy, I
Yeah,
think is just another one of those like you could tell he was going to be special. 6'6"
yeah,
guard, could do everything on the floor. But to get back to it, I love Dame, but again, it's obvious that he's like requesting a trade. I think he's just so infatuated with this idea of like not cheating the grind, doing it with who you drafted. And I think, that's what's the word? That's honorable, that's admirable. But it gets to the point where it's like you say you want to win a chip, you say you want to do this and that, to where there's a lot of contradictions. So, and I think Jaylen Brown's is one. I think it's the only one that could even remotely match the kind of money Dame's going to be making. Because, I mean, if you think about it, man, Ruben, 120 M's used to be the full max. Dame's going to
yeah.
get that in 2 years.
That's crazy.
And then, two, I think it's the only thing you do to where Portland keeps that third pick as well. And not only that, you'll be getting like a solid stream of assets. Like if I had to guess a package, it's obviously Jaylen Brown, and I would assume 2 future first rounders. And then maybe you throw in like, I don't know, the Grant
Pritchard or
Williams,
something.
Peyton Pritchard, something along those lines. Like, obviously, there's no way you're gonna get back a player the level of Dame's like pedigree. But I think, and you're looking at it from both sides, who's available on the market, at least to our knowledge. I think the Jaylen Brown for the Dame thing makes sense.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that third pick probably, it will stay, with Portland
Oh man, if they
because
get
obviously they'd
Scoot,
want to.
whew,
Can you imagine Scoot, Jaylen Brown, and Shane Sharp?
don't
My
forget
God,
don't
dude.
forget Anthony Simons.
Oh yeah, I think Anthony Simons is potentially getting dealt. I think he's a name that's been roughed around the edges. So, all that to say is, I think the Celtics need to look in the mirror and make some significant changes. Again, like it's so easy to say that these guys are young. They have a good core group of players. Like Robert Williams is still a fairly young player, but you know, Oh man, I don't want to say this because like Jason Tatum's 24, 25.
He's
But screw it, I'm gonna
25.
say it
Yeah.
anyway. He's about the same age as Devin Booker. This reminds me of the Phoenix Suns,
Oh, damn.
right? Like
Okay.
Marcus Smart is getting up there in age as well, right? And I understand you have Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White, but those guys are not premier players. Like Derek White, obviously, all defense, and Malcolm Brogdon just won you sixth man of the year. But again, regular season awards don't take you to the promised land, right? And so it's about building a good construct of players that are gonna allow you to be successful, or like put guys in the right place to be successful, maximize their talent. Essentially, is what I'm trying
I
to
like
say.
that. Yeah.
And yeah, and I was just gonna say Joe Mazzulla also. There's a level of blame here that has to be sitting on his shoulders because you know um, he even said you got to get your guys ready to play. I understand, like it is a players thing. Like he's trying to take the blame off the players, but I think it's both. And clearly, we wasn't able to make the adjustment in Game 7 against that zone. Like I don't know, I don't know how you don't break up middle school zone.
Hey, man, something what happens when you come against the Filipino stallion. You know what I'm saying?
Spo.
But yeah, no, I'm trying to. I think this core has like it's run its course to an extent.
Yeah,
I think you definitely look at dealing Jaylen Brown, and then with the
Marcus
kind
Smart
of money,
potentially.
Marcus Smart for sure. I feel like Marcus Smart, like I think you look at it, but I also think you wouldn't do it unless it's like a crazy kind of deal. I think Marcus Smart's like, as much as we can say Jason Tatum's the best player, the leader,
Too
Marcus
entrenched in
Smart,
that culture.
yeah, Marcus Smart is the culture. He's the heart of that team. He's the Bobby Portis of it, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think they do it unless it's like something like out of the water kind of thing. But man, Crazy Christian can't be here. I hope he's doing all right. Let's move on to the finals. Ruben, man. On Thursday, we are going into one of the possible last 7 games of this year, man. First of all, when I was making like the little thumbnail for this pod, I dubbed it. This is the Purist finale. This
Yes.
is. I know the ratings are probably going to be down, but that just proves who's a actual enjoyer of basketball, who just likes the bullshit headlines. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's pure Hoopers unite. I mean, how could you not be excited about watching a team like the Denver Nuggets where they're literally perfect top to
There's
bottom.
that, and there's no one on their roster you can be like, fuck that guy.
Yeah, like you
Such
don't
a
dislike
likable
anybody on
roster.
that team.
Mhm.
And then you look at obviously Michael Malone, great coach. Jokic, Jamal Murray, like just great superstars, great faces of the league, really good talent pool, like deep team. Miami, Eric Spoelstra, great coach. Go down as one of the best ever to do it. Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry, really good collection of players. Tyler Hero could be making his return by game 3.
Yeah, I saw that.
They fought to get to the finals out of the mud, an 8th seed, and they lost the first game of the play-in. Let's not forget that.
Have you seen the things on Twitter where they're saying like, what's Demar's kid's name? Dior? Or Dior?
DR.
Yeah,
Oh, what
Dior.
happened? What
If she
would
goes,
have happened if she was in, she would? What would happen if DR was in freaking school? I don't know.
man,
I
Milwaukee
actually don't.
Bucks would have made the conference finals, man. But no, yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah. I
mean,
don't think
this
Toronto would have
is
beaten
this is
Milwaukee.
gonna be a crazy good series. I'm so excited. You got a bunch of big questions. I think the one thing is like the Nuggets. They have the personnel to defend Jimmy. I think that's going to be a big thing. I think Aaron Gordon is going to be on him like flies on shit, you know. And you
Absolutely.
saw Jimmy have problems with Rob Will. So when you
That's
what
flies on what?
flies on shit, you never heard that?
No, dude, that's good though.
And I think I heard a white person say it to me. But yeah, I mean,
Uh,
when you look
Shout out
at
to all
Aaron
our white
Gordon,
people.
he has a similar build to Rob Will, but I think he's a little better in terms of like being able to impose his will. And him on Jimmy, I think that's going to be a big thing to see. You know, and then when you look at the Heat, what does the rotation look like? One thing I hope to see is I hope Kevin Love gets back into the rotation for the size/rebounding, and not only that, that outlet pass is still one of the best in the league. And then
Yeah,
obviously you look to what do you do with Tyler Hero? In my opinion, I don't think you change it up unless you get blasted in game 1 and 2. And when you look at it, I think Hero's role should be something of spot minutes slash like he's the guy you throw in when players are in foul trouble, or if like say Denver goes on like a 15-2 run, something along those lines. I think when you're looking at if it's in the flow of game, everything's going to plan, you're not getting like decimated or anything like that. I feel like you go with the guys that got you here because one,
yep,
to look at Jamon Green's podcast when I looked at when he was breaking it down, rhythm's a really big thing. Duncan Robinson
absolutely.
is as much as like you would probably take Tyler Hero 10 times out of 10. I think Duncan Robinson's on a good rhythm. Caleb Martin's on a really good rhythm. And there's just a lot of things I think that as great as Tyler Hero is as an individual, I think putting him in solely for the fact that he's Tyler Hero making 100 plus $1 million could definitely bite you to an extent. But like another thing is Miami's defensive versatility. I think that's going to be one of the biggest things. Jokic is going to kill that zone defense. I mean, I was looking at like the highlights of their 2 games before during the regular season. Jokic was giving him work, man.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that's not something they want to employ against the
Mhm.
Nuggets because Jokic is going to flash high, and him in the high post in the zone is going to be absolutely destructive. So obviously, this is a much different team. This is not a team that you can throw middle school zone on and expect success. They're just too well coached and way too many high IQ players on the Nuggets. Um, yeah, you said it perfectly about um, Tyler Hero. I think definitely spot minutes. I agree 100%. Like ride with the guys that you've been riding with, and I want to give flowers to Spo because I don't think his rotations have been talked about well enough. But I don't know if they've had very many losing minutes with any lineups that have been out there
Oh,
all
that
playoffs
and
long.
like I think take some balls to bench Kevin Love. As much as he's not the guy who he was in Cleveland, the kind of experience he has, that's that's
Yeah,
respects.
very ballsy,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think Kevin Love also knows that to some extent, and he also made the same sort of decision with Kyle Lowry, entering the playoffs as well. So
Yeah.
and it's it's been beneficial to them, right? They're playing the most optimal lineup out there at all times, and he's been doing a great job with rotations. On the Nuggets side, I made this mistake of saying who the hell is going to guard Anthony Davis, and I said, how is Jokic? I also question, how successful Jokic would be against AD. I know Bam is a great defensive player, and if he has success, I'll be surprised because I just don't think there's anybody that can stop Nikola Jokic at this current moment. And the way that he plays, I just don't think you can actually. He's not the kind of player that you can sit there and say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna stop Jokic," because like he's a pass first player, and um, you're not gonna be able to stop him from creating looks for others. You're not gonna be able to stop him from distributing, stop him from, creating shots for himself and for others. And his offense is super versatile too. So I'm super excited about this series because I feel like it's going to be a chess match,
Oh yeah, 100%.
and I'm really excited to see how Jamal Murray does on the biggest stage.
Oh man, I'm can't wait for Thursday, man. My
Yeah,
goodness.
it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great series. All that being said, I've got the Nuggets winning at 5.
Oh, okay. Nuggets in
Yeah,
5, and you think Nicola's for sure the Finals MVP?
I do. I think he's the Finals MVP. I think every game is close. I think absolutely every game is close.
Mm,
But I think the Nuggets just are just too good. I think they're just so good.
I respect that. For me, man, I'm riding it. Give me heated 7. Bam as
Wow.
Finals MVP. You know,
Wow.
give me that. I think it's going to be definitely a dogfight. If I had to guess, I think they split in Denver. I think they honestly split all the way up until, you know,
5, 6, 7.
yeah. And I think that Denver wins that game 5. Then 6 and 7. That's Miami time. That's more 305, but yeah, no, I like the Heat here. And I think one thing it goes into, which we'll get into, is the key matchups. I mean, obviously, I think the big one is Bam versus Jokic, and when you look at it, I think Bam needs to make Jokic guard him in space. I
Yeah.
think there needs to be a lot of time where Bam's taking advantage of the fact that he's playing 5, but he's more accustomed to maybe being a 4. He has the ability to grab the rebound and like not only just run the offense, but he can like really push the pace. I think you need to see a lot of stuff like that. And then when you look at Miami, there's a lot of like dribble handoffs. And I think that when you look at how Jokic was guarding in the Lakers series, it was a lot of like kind of roaming in the sense because Anthony Davis wants to play in the post. He wants to catch it right around in the paint area. So I think there's going to be a lot of points to where Bam's able to take advantage in the sense of the fact that he has so much energy, the fact that he's able to really be a roamer offensively and defensively. I think that's a big thing that they'll be able to take advantage of. And man, I think we're due for a big Bam game. There hasn't been like a 30, 10, and 7 kind of game from Bam this playoffs, and I think we're due for one.
Yeah, I think you're right. You made a really good point about defending Bam because the difference between any of the bigs that Jokic has guarded is none of them have been facilitators.
Hmm. Yeah.
None of them have been the initiators for their offense. And like you said, Bam can take it off the board and start the break. And that's a massive difference because that's what makes Denver so good on the offensive end, and that's what makes them so good on the defensive end too. Because that allows them to leak out, that allows them to stay, that allows them to close the gap, especially on defensive boards. Because whoever can get it can rush the paint or can rush
Mhm.
it in transition, and that's what makes Miami so good. Is because they have so much versatility in the way they initiate their offense, whether it's Jimmy, whether it's been Caleb Martin at times as well. That's been really fun to watch, like
Oh
him
yeah.
bring up the ball at certain moments, and their actions are really interesting because he starts as initiator, and then it's almost as if the initiator is the guy who will get the ball at the end of that possession. So it's really interesting seeing how that plays out. Yeah, when you got to guard him in space, 94 feet almost, that's a different level of energy the different level of attentiveness as well, because Jokic has to worry about him beyond 3 point line because of the fact that he's not guarding the guy that's slipping to the paint or that's crashing. He has to guard the ball handler, and that's a massive difference.
Oh yeah.
So that'll be really fun to see. Jokic obviously has struggled in space, so if Miami can really exploit that, we're looking at a completely different series than I'm thinking.
100%. Let's move on to another thing. X factors. Who would you say? We'll start with Miami. Who do you think is Miami's big X factor?
Um, uh, Caleb Martin was really good in the Celtics series, but I think that was a really good. I think that was an indication of the series itself and what they needed ultimately. But I think for the Miami Heat, I think it'll be Kyle Lowry. I think
Mm,
just championship experience, right? And he's the only guy that's playing big minutes on that team that has won a championship. So I think it's going to be really important to see how he's going to lead that team, especially the bench lineup. It's going to be really key against a team like Denver, who's really deep. But I think Kyle is going to be a massive difference maker. Not necessarily in his production, like on the box score, but his ability to make the extra plays and control the pace of the game. So I would say he's the X factor for
for
Miami.
sure. I like that. I mean, I can already imagine it. There's going to be a point, late game situation. Jamal Murray's got the ball, and either Kyle Lowry really rips him or gets a timely charge. I like that pick. For me, I already talked about it. I got Kevin Love. You know, I think as much as Bam is going to be a big like part of like the Heat's defensive identity when it comes to guarding Jokic, they're going to need another big body there to match the size of that front court. And I think Kevin Love's going to play a big part here. Helps with the rebounding. And again, that outlet pass is going to be another thing for them to get that offense running.
Massive.
Yeah. And then if he's able to even like hit like maybe two or three threes throughout the game, that's a big thing you take, especially considering those are probably the minutes where you don't have, Jimmy or Bam on the floor. And yeah. Who do you think is the Nuggets' big X factor?
I got two.
Okay.
I've got two. Number one, I think it's going to be Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah, that's who I got.
I think Michael Porter Jr. is there's no other clear third option offensively for Miami, and I think that's where Denver will thrive is their ability to have. I mean, all playoffs long, right? They've had a different guy step up, but Michael Porter Jr. has been consistently really good from the perimeter this year. And his defense has also been really solid, and that size is going to be massive because he's literally as tall as Bam Adebayo, right? At 6'10", that's a significant difference on the perimeter and on the inside. So I look to him to have a big series because I'm not sure there's anybody outside of Jimmy and Bam that can guard him. So that'll be interesting to see. And I think the second part of it is the second X factor that I have is altitude. We've never seen
Oh,
the Denver Nuggets
that's
in
a
the NBA
good that's a good
Finals.
one. Yeah.
We've never seen like the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals, let alone an Eastern Conference team spending more than 2 games, because Eastern Conference teams only go to Denver once a year. So they're gonna see Denver at least 4 games this year, or 4 games in this series. Not to mention 2 in a row. They'll have to fly all the way back to Miami, and then they'll have to come back and get acclimated to Denver in Game 5 if it goes that far. So altitude, massive, massive difference. And I think it always has been. We've heard players talking about it where the first 5 minutes, like they're literally gasping for air before they finally can acclimate. especially if you're talking about bench guys needing to step in. Like those guys will need to get acclimated in the middle of a game. And who knows, maybe by that time they're already down by 15. So, yeah, altitude and Michael Porter Jr.
Hey man, the Heat culture different, man. We all know the body fat percentage. But yeah, no, I think that's gonna be a big thing. And it's not necessarily will Miami be able to like punch them back in a sense. I think it's they're gonna be able to like, sustain it and not necessarily get to the point where they're down double digits that early. But yeah, for me, 100% Michael Porter Jr. One, no one's gonna be able to contest his shot, and then again to go back to Draymond's like review of it, I think Max Strus is the one who's gonna draw that assignment primarily, and then Max Strus is what 6'4", 6'5" at most. And
That's a tough ask.
we all know Michael Porter Jr. is on the KD level in the sense that when he rises up, he's not seeing shit. And we're due for I think a Michael Porter Jr. 30 piece, something along those lines. And if we're looking at with how, Bam, how he's going to be able, I think, to be a much more. I think he's going to be able to give Jokic a lot more sporadic coverage, if that makes sense. Not necessarily in the sense where like. He's going to stay with you no matter where you go. He's going to get the block. But I think Bam's going to be able to, hit him with a bunch of different things to the point where he's going to have to kick it out. And one person I expect to really a big beneficiary, Michael Porter Jr. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that. Another one, a bit more of an obvious one. Give me Bruce Brown. I think when you look at like the second units, nobody can really fuck with Bruce Brown. And he's a guy who's going to get paid, I think, this summer. Shame that they only had him on player option, but he's a guy that's really shown that he's the kind of guy that every championship team has. When you look at the Warriors, you could probably pair him with like a mix of a Gary Payton, Otto Porter, the Bucks, PJ Tucker, with the Raptors. It's just that whole entire culture of like not being like boxed into being like strictly a 3-point shooter, strictly a defender. Bruce Brown does it all, and I expect him to have like there's gonna be a good maybe 5-10 minutes of this series where you're gonna say Bruce Brown he was unfuckwittable during that stretch.
Yeah, I agree with Bruce Brown, but sure, DeAndre Jordan couldn't be an X factor.
Man, DeAndre Jordan's gonna average 5 high fives. He's going to average 3 Gatorade assists. He's going to average, solid 6 handshakes, a solid 2 back pats.
You're doing good, my man. You're doing good, my man. We're going to get like 4 of those a game.
100%. But just to not fully shit on the man, you can see that DeAndre Jordan's like, he's an important part of that team. He's a guy that gives leadership, provides some kind of, what's the word? Like experience to an extent, Lob City and all that. He knows what it's like to be on a playoff team that don't be doing nothing. So, Another player I'm excited to play in the finals is Jeff Green, Uncle Jeff, man. One of the oldest players in the league, 100%. This is his first finals? Was he on the OKC team when they went with Miami?
He was not. Because that's when he was traded away for gosh, I can't remember. But he was traded away at that time.
Oh, was that the Perk one? Is that how Perk got to?
Yeah, that was the Perk one.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what it is. He got traded to the Celtics.
But yeah, Jeff Green, I think, is going to be
I think, he's never made the finals. Oh, I'm sorry. He was in the Cavs in 18, but I don't think he stayed all the way through.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see a lot of these. I mean, either way you have it, it's going to be a good story in terms of who wins. And I know, like we just mentioned, narrative's not necessarily everything, but it's either Jokic cements himself as one of the greatest players, greatest centers, in the likes of Hakeem already, or it's the first 8th seed and the first play-in team. Not to mention a team that lost their first playing game and boom, raising that shit.
Yeah, I mean, individually, you said it, Jokic. I mean, Jamal Murray, first Canadian superstar, I guess you could say, to win a championship. I mean, obviously Rick Fox won one, but Jamal Murray is the face of Canadian basketball. Him and SGA, he's gonna win one. That's exciting. I mean, Wiggins won one last year, so like just keep that trend going. On the other end, Kyle Lowry making two, and I think he's gonna solidify himself even more in the Hall of Fame conversation. Jimmy Butler, same thing. So it's gonna be an exciting time. If you don't like the series, like you don't like basketball, you're just a little fanboy.
100%. Eat the biggest bag of cocks.
Yeah, straight up. Like I'm actually so tired of some of these like fair waiver fans who are like, man, this year sucks because you don't have so and so. I'm like, dude, honestly, if you just want to sit and write on them, then that's fine. I don't care. Like, if you don't enjoy basketball, then just tell the truth.
100%. But man, Thursday.
Kerry Hoopers unite.
Thursday. It's going down.
Thursday, it's going down. Denver Nuggets will win by 23 points.
You think they smoke them like that?
Yeah, I think they smoked in the first game. I think Denver has got some. I think they're just like the rest.
Actually, you know what? That's fair. Because when you look at it, it's the what 10 plus days of rest versus 2.
Yeah, and the altitude they got to come to after playing literally a game 7.
Hey man, like, Miami flew right away. Apparently,
they didn't even go home. That's insane. They didn't even go home.
Musty ass.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, I'm sure they showered when they got to the hotel, bro. But
True,
like, can you imagine? Like, I mean, they showered at the locker. Why are we talking about men showering? That's crazy.
Hey man, ain't nothing wrong with men showering.
All right, damn.
But man, look, this summer overall, sports is gonna be so much fun. Because
Awesome.
Just to quickly get into it, we obviously got the finals. We got FIBA this summer. We got like whole bunch of UFC things that are gonna be crazy.
I'm excited for the WNBA this year because the Aces. Man. Oh my god.
Yeah. Stewie in her first game in New York. Whew.
Oh, she
my
was
goodness.
On fire. Oh my goodness.
Cooking. BG back in the league.
Oh, yeah. Man. Mercury looked good too, man. Mercury looked good.
I think this is gonna be a summer where like the W really starts to take off for sure.
100%. A lot of really good names in there. I mean, I think the Aces repeat though. I mean, they're stacked.
I mean, it's. Did you watch the new episode of the Paul George's podcast?
No, I haven't yet.
Yeah, he asked Asia Wilson if they're a super team, and he was kind of like, I don't really think they're a super team. Come on now, Candace Parker, Kelsey Plum.
That's an insane team, man.
Gray, Jackie Young. Like, come on now.
Yeah, 5 All-Stars on that starting lineup, bro.
What are we talking about?
Dude, we should definitely have a WNBA podcast.
Oh man.
I mean, like at least just to talk about
what's just to touch on
the
it.
That'd be fire.
And even to look at like outside of basketball, man.
100%.
Crawford and Spence. Whoo!
That's good. Oh, dude.
Who?
I don't even know who to pick for that.
Oh man, I think as great as Spence has looked since his return, I think I gotta go Bud.
Yeah, he's on a different level. Yeah,
I gotta go Bud for that.
He's on a different level right now, but I don't know. You can't count out Errol Spence, man.
Mm-hmm. And towards the end of the summer, man, O'Malley and Sterling. Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, well, tonight was the start of Tough too. The Ultimate Fighter, Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor. I got it recorded, so I'm gonna be watching it after this. Oh
shit! I'm gonna go look at it on a less than legitimate site after this.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Sounds good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I think Chandler's gonna blast Conor. Also,
really?
I think so.
Really? I think the way Chandler fights is perfectly set up for the way Conor fights. Because Chandler likes to go in there and he likes to start throwing heavy hands. I think the wrestling will make a difference, but Chandler hasn't shown me that he's going to be looking to wrestle. He's looking like he wants to throw bombs.
So wasn't he like a Division II wrestler or something like that?
Yeah, the dude is like an All-American.
See, like I don't understand why all these motherfuckers that have wrestling pedigree or judo, whatever it may be, some kind of groundwork. My brother.
That's what makes money.
True.
That's why Chandler keeps getting all the top fights, because he just wants to throw haymakers.
True.
He's really good at marketing, but like if I'm trying to win a fight, dude, easier wrestling against these guys who don't wrestle.
Hundred
And
percent.
so, anyways, I mean, like the guys that he did wrestle, I mean, the guys that he did win against weren't necessarily wrestlers, anyways.
Who's
Like
he?
I mean, Tony Ferguson was like he's a
Tony was
great
cooked though,
jiu-jitsu,
man. You
but
could
he's cooked,
tell.
yeah.
Dan
And then
Dan Hooker was like a last minute stand-in, wasn't he? He was supposed to fight somebody
no,
else.
no,
No, that was his first fight. Yeah.
That was his first fight, but Dan Hooker mentally was kind of out of that one. But
Yeah.
I mean, Michael Chandler wants to throw bombs, so we'll see. That's gonna be a fun fight.
100%. Oh man. Sports, just everything happening this summer. It's gonna be a good time.
Yes, sir.
So excited. But yeah, Thursday. Oh, I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Yes, sir. Nuggets Heat. Stay tuned.
Any last things to say, Rube?
I got Jokic with a triple double on Thursday.
Woo-hoo, you gonna put some money on that?
Maybe. I'll put some Monopoly on there. Monopoly money on there.
Oh yeah. You throwing that green or the yellow?
Yes, sir. Green, yellow, and red.
Hoo-hoo. Yeah. Triple double? I can see that. I need me a nice 20 and 10 bad game.
Just to counter it when they lose by 26.
Yeah. And with that, stay safe, stay blessed. We'll see y'all soon.